Quilt Escape fans, we're back and we're going to do our 2 remaining blocks in the first 4. We're going to do Windy Days and Odd Scraps. And so I've actually made the 2 blocks. This is Windy Days. You can see our half squares in this windmill kind of position in a 4 patch. And then here's our Odd Scraps. And you'll see there are also 4 half squares in a corner, but the arrangement's completely different. So that you'll have to pay attention to as we go along. What I'm excited to show is how I make these half squares from rectangles. Because if you remember in your original cutting instructions, and this would have been in your original document, I talked to you about cutting. The first 2 blocks are obvious because they're squares and rectangles. There's no need to worry about that. But when you get into these blocks, you're talking about half squares, so it's a lot different. But if you noticed, your math was cutting everything from a 3-inch strip when you use my rectangle method. So that's the first thing that I want to show you today. And I want to talk to you again about the Modern Square Triangle tool. And when you're looking at it with me, you're going to notice the first one with the line is at 1.5. Then there's a dashed line, and then you'll see 2.5. The dashed line is a solid number of 2. And then you drop down to the 3.5, and the in-between dash line is a 3. Now, we're going to use that 3 and line up over here. And I'm just going to show you that I'm using a rotating mat today for my drawing process. You don't have to do that, but I wanted to share it with you because I really enjoy it this way. It's a nice little tool, so I'm going to use it, and you'll see why I like it. So the first thing you're going to do is line up your dashed line, number 3, underneath the bottom edge of your rectangle, and along the side will be this right angle. Then you're going to pick up your friction marker and you're going to draw your line. And I'm just going to keep walking over and doing all of these at one time and draw the lines, and then you'll just see how this progresses. It's pretty quick. I will tell you this is one of my favorite activities to do the night before I'm going to sew, and that way I can actually watch TV. I can bring this little board to the couch with me and sit it on my lap, and I can draw and watch the TV too. So it works out well. So now, without having to flip the tool around, I just rotated the mat. You see that? Then I'm going to go back and line up the exact same way at the 3-inch line and draw my line, and I'll just scoot on over, do the same thing on all 4 of these. Okay. It doesn't take too long to do it. Now, the point of marking these lines is because you're going to sew on them. And that's the huge difference in my method than, you know, it's not really a cutting tool, it's a marking tool. And I think you're going to love it. First of all, you got to rotary cut everything at a whole number. You never had to deal with 1/8 of an inch. And that's fantastic in my life. I like cutting everything out on a whole number or a 1/2 inch. Much easier to rotary cut. But if you remember, I also promised you that I would do it with squares. Now, before I move on, I just want to show you I had already layered the light background with the corresponding dark half, and I'm putting it all in a stack. You can see that. And I'll take these over where the sewing machine is so you see what I've done. And then we'll feed them through in just a minute after I show you how to do the squares. So I'm going to put some squares on here right now, And I have done a few squares already, but I want to put a few more up here. Now this, you can do this or not do this, but because it is a mat, it's very helpful actually. In this next tool that I'm going to show you, I have a engraved line down the center of the tool, and that's the line that you actually want to line up from corner to corner. And sometimes when they're not too big, like in this case, I can do 2 squares at a time. Can you see what I'm doing? I'm actually going to put this on, and I'm going to go to the next square and do 2 at a time. Now I have to move my hands a little bit to do the other side. Okay? When you're drawing up against this tool, you want to make sure that the point of this friction marker is right up against the tool. Don't ever stand the pin up straight because it'll put it out too far. So it's just that simple. Now I want to get back to another factor, and that is this. If you're going to do this from squares, you're going to take your original instructions, and everywhere I told you to cut a 3x4 rectangle, you're going to cut 3.5-inch squares. So that's all there is to it. It'll be the same quantity, the same colors, but you will cut squares if you prefer to do this method. Now let's say you don't have this tool and you don't have that tool and you want to do it the old-fashioned way. You can use my tool that way too, or you can use any straight edge and just mark a straight line across like this. And I'll do 2 squares like that, so it would be 1 line. And we'll talk about the pros and cons of this when I get ready to sew. So we have 2 marked like you may be used to doing. And then we have 2 marked that are using my tool. And just a reminder, if you don't have the tool and you want the tool, all you have to do is send it in on email to me and request them. This one's 10, this one's 15, and I'll get them shipped out to you in about 3 days. They'll come to you. Okay, I'm going to put this away and I'm going to do a little sewing now. You're going to be amazed at some of the cool things about these half squares from rectangles. That's the first thing I really want to point out to you. Remember our process. We're going to start with a leader. We're going to sink the needle, and there we go. And I'm going to put the first one down, and you're actually going to start on the inside line. You're not going to start from a point, because when you start from a point, then you're going to have a tendency to pull it down underneath the presser foot. So you're going to start right here on the inside line. I'm actually going to slide that underneath this leader, but you won't be sewing into that, so that's not going to be a problem. Okay, let's take off. You're going to see really quickly that the nice thing about the rectangles is they're going to follow each other. You'll see how I can push that right up against the next one, and I'm going to get my fun little tool here and I will guide it there together, and you'll see. Keep it there and add the next one so that I'm sewing right on to the next line. I'm going to stop when I get right down there at the end, pick up another one, and here we go, and we're going to sew right onto the line. So just stay on the line, that's all you have to do. Sew on the line, it's really simple, very simple. So here we go. But the next one right underneath that. Okay, and we'll follow up with another one. See how nice they snuggle up together. That's one of my favorite things about this. And it's pretty easy to stay on this line. Now, even though I have more to sew, I'm going to stop here. I'm going to cut the threads, and I'd really like to turn it around so that you can see what's going to happen. So we're going to start again. Remember our process. Sink the needle, start with a leader, tuck this under, and here we go. Just sew right onto it. Now they're going to follow each other because they're already hooked together with one thread. So it's even going to be easier for them to follow along. But when you get to the very end, just stop for a second and get lined up. Because you can throw yourself off when you're going too fast. And believe me, I've done all of those mistakes. So here we go. And we'll keep on going. All right, our last one. Okay, I'm going to clip those threads. Now I'm going to just show you quickly. If you were doing the old-fashioned process and you just had a line, I'm going to give you a tip. You can use your regular presser foot. Notice that's the presser foot that I have on. And again, I would start with a leader. Okay, let's put that leader down, stitch some on there. Here we go. Now look at what I'm going to do. I'm using my regular presser foot, and I'm going to sew on the other side of that line. This is not your 1/4 inch foot. That's very important for you to note. See how when you're doing a square, it's not going to line up? So that's one of the disadvantages, and I just allow it to sew anyway. It so far hasn't hurt my machine. So let's turn it around. We'll start with a leader on this end. Okay. This is leading up to something. I think you're going to be surprised when I tell you that this is how I really discovered how to make my tool. So here we go. And again, I'm using a regular presser foot. I am not using a 1/4 inch foot. Now, I can't guarantee that this is going to work for you every time, but we will find out shortly. I'm going to use this to cut in between. What do we need these to be? We need them to be 3 inches. And for my purposes right now, I'm going to cut on that line. And notice I have 2 dog ears. Whenever I'm working with squares, I'm going to get 2 dog ears. So I'm going to open this up, and I would normally just press this to one side. That's the way I do it. And I'm going to use a little wooden pressing foot to set the seam. And I find this very handy, especially at the machine. Now I'm going to put this on here, and I think you're going to be surprised. You may still have to cut it slightly, but it's pretty doggone close to being 3 inches. Now that's with my regular presser foot, okay? You can try it. I can't guarantee it's going to work with everybody's presser foot because every machine is created differently. If you don't want to do that, you can do your 1/4 inch, and then you can trim up to that 3 inch piece. Now I'm going to do one using my first tool, and I can guarantee that it will come out because I've already factored that. So just for my purposes, I'm going to turn this around and quickly sew it this way because I've got lots more to show you with my half squares. Okay. Here we go. So I'm going to cut this one down the center also. But notice I have 2 dog ears. You see the little points? So I have to trim both of those. That's what you're going to find it's so great with the other tool. Okay, this one will be exactly 3 inches. I don't have to trim it at all. So that's the, that's the beauty of the tool. That's the wand tool. And now you're going to see the same thing happen with the rectangle tool. I don't have to worry about that second step that a lot of you are doing. And it's really takes up a lot of your time. So what I want to show you now really is how I cut these out. And I'm going to move to this larger piece over here and separate these into 3s. And I'll just show you real quick how I do this. And you'll notice that it's pretty efficient. Take off those little pieces. And I'll move my marking to another location. Because this is what this lesson is all about, really, is for you to learn how to make half squares from rectangles and then assemble your pieces and parts. So I'm going to move the marking over to here. I think you all got how to mark it. Now we're going to get how do we cut it. And you can cut these actually very efficiently by putting them down. Notice that they're in their lineup here. I'm going to use a longer ruler. Let me just reach out here and grab this ruler, and I'll show you what I mean, because I'm going to literally put a 1/4 inch line right on my stitching line, and I'm going to use my rotary cutter, and I'm going to cut my 1/4 inch. And I'm really doing this for a purpose of showing you what you will be throwing away. And where is that 1/8 of an inch that you didn't have to cut out? And you'll actually see it. It's kind of cool. All right, now let's do these 3. So I can usually do 3 at a time. And then what I'm going to do, of course I'm going to cheat. I'm going to use my wonderful 18-inch rotating mat, and I'm going to turn it around so that I don't have to turn around. And I'm going to do the same thing again and put that 1/4 inch right there. And I'm going to do it over here where I line up the 1/4 inch on my stitching line. And I'm going to trim this seam allowance to a 1/4 inch. So here we go. And I'm going to just pick up a line of them. Okay? And pick up a line of them. Pick up a line. And pick up a line. And then I'm going to leave on the mat. Okay, you guys. There's your 1/8 of an inch. So I just thought it might be fun to show you. That's what I'm going to trim out, and that's your 1/8 of an inch. So that's your scrap. So you'll be getting rid of that. And then this is when you're going to go ahead and unconnect them. And that won't take long at all. And then you're going to press it to the dark, and they'll be ready to go. And we'll talk about how cool this is. One more little trick to show you, because you're going to be using this half square technique several times. The first thing I want to show you, I'm going to hold up a couple of them. Look at this. You've got a square tip on one end, and only one end has a dog ear. So what I do is I stack them on top of each other, and I trim them off. And now they both have dog ears. Now when you press these open, they're going to be exactly 3 inches, which is what you need them to be. They'll measure right up and be precisely 3 inches. So now you've saved yourself all that work of cutting down. They will come out exactly the way you need them to come out. So now we're going to talk about how do I put this block together. And I'm going to show you right over here. And I've already got the block staged up and made the parts. So let's walk over here and take a look. So once you have all your half squares made, you're going to join the 2 patches again. And then you're going to have that center square. And you will chain sew these together. So it'll be the 4 patch, the 2 patch, and the 4 patch together for row 1. And then for your row 2, you'll just have the 2-patch, a square, and a 2-patch. And then row 3 will be this 4-patch, and 2-patch, and a 4-patch. And on this block, I'll just kind of move it over a little bit for you. It's the same idea. A 4-patch joining with a 2-patch. And a 2-patch, a single square and a 2-patch, a 4-patch, a 2-patch, and a 4-patch. And then once you have your rows, you're going to join them right through the center, and you'll come back and you'll have your completed blocks just like this. So, I hope you enjoyed today's lesson on how to make half squares from rectangles. It's really the most fun I've ever had, and I hope you'll really give it a try, and we'll see you back here next time. And before I go, I just want to point out, these are the 4 blocks that we'll be doing. So we have Deer Creek Star, Country Roads, Hunter Star, and Ohio Crossroads. 4 of my favorite blocks, and I think you'll enjoy doing each one of those as well. See you next time.